Hello and welcome to another edition of the Morning Update live on NTN. We'd like to thank you so much for tuning in. Today is Tuesday, the 12th of January 2020. We're getting into the year bull speed. We do hope everyone is keeping safe and adhering to the protocols as well as the infection prevention guidelines. If you're watching on air online, residents right here in St. Lucia and St. Lucians living in the diaspora looking to keep abreast as to what's happening, good morning to you. No sooner had we received word of new cases, 24 new cases of COVID-19, and there was a subsequent release just moments later informing us that there was a confirmation of 16 additional cases of COVID-19. We will get the latest from the Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Sharon Belmar-George, in just a moment. Stay tuned for that. Also, the island's Education Minister says the decision to return students to the classroom was taken with due care and consideration. We did have a statement, a conference being held just yesterday, the Prime Minister and the Minister for Education speaking on the reopening of the education sector. And we also have a press statement coming out of that meeting. So just letting the public know what exactly is happening in terms of the due care and consideration that has been put in place in the reopening of this sector. The DVRP lends support to NEMO's Operations Center, and we have a staff of the respiratory hospital being fitted with a more comfortable space. We do have a report on that. I believe we aired it yesterday, but just for the benefit of individuals who missed out, we will be playing it again. So stay tuned for the details to these stories and more. We know the kids are back in the classrooms. We know that there are many parents also who are
and her unique view can change your whole perspective. Proudly, she has risen to meet new challenges and to provide safe harbor to all who reach her shores. For her hopes and dreams still stand, shoulder to shoulder, a precious reminder of experiences yet to come. So, wherever your moments and memories take you, let her sense of adventure set you free. She is St. Lucia. Let her inspire you.
Thank you so much for staying tuned. If you're just joining us, my name is Jessie Leonce, and this is the Morning Update live on NTN. We're bringing you the latest developments coming from the government of St. Lucia. We received word from the Department of Health that there was a confirmation of 24 new cases of COVID-19, and shortly thereafter we received additional confirmation of 16 new cases. We will be hearing from the Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Sharon Belmar-George, shortly on this matter. In the meantime, the nation's students returned to the classroom with the opening of the second school term on Monday. That was yesterday, January 11th, 2021, after months of closure of the school compounds. The Department of Education, Innovation, Gender Relations and Sustainable Development continues to engage all stakeholders within the education sector amid the fluid nature of COVID-19. And Minister for Education, the Honorable Dr. Gail Rigobert, during a press conference held yesterday, I believe it was at the Office of the Prime Minister, did reiterate the importance of consultation, especially during this time. She called on all stakeholders to engage their respective leaders and heads of departments as they would have been part of the consultation meetings and the decision-making process. The sharing of information and decisions taken, the minister did stress, is critical. No. I told you let's go again.
Today, Saturday, January 9th.
Okay, now we go to the clip from the Honorable Dr. Gail Rigobert.
on all of the engagements that we've had. Mrs. Eugene, who's the head of the school counselors, sits in on that meeting, and she then would relay to her membership, her team, the counselors, that which pertains to them. In the same way, for example, Ms. Prince is the education officer for early childhood education and sits in on all of our engagements, and she too will therefore pass on to that information to both private and public administrators or owners of what we call preschools or early childhood education officers. In the same spirit in which, for example, Mr. Sergis, who oversees our special education institution, sits in on these meetings and then passes on the information and engages persons in his particular subsector. So I want to thank all of those team leads, some of who I have not mentioned, for your full participation, and I trust that in your own way too, you'll continue to engage with your subsectors.
The Minister of Education emphasized that the safety of students, teachers, and other school staff remain paramount, and as such, a number of measures have been undertaken to ensure their safety. One such measure is the boosting of the school's cleaning regimen, as previously indicated by the Chief Environmental Health Officer last week. Take a look.
We have embellished, improved, emphasized our cleaning program throughout the week. In fact, additionally, for consideration by the Ministry of Finance, is that a provision be made for extending the hours of janitors, caretakers, so as to accommodate that additional cleaning. And we will see that roll out in the new fiscal year, but in the meantime, the concern should be on the way in which we should consider it. It is not that cleaning is reserved for one day a week, but rather it is a complete embrace of the need to ensure a comprehensive cleaning, not that we weren't cleaning before, but that the effort be amplified throughout the week.
The Education Minister highlighted other measures that have been undertaken to ensure all protocols are adhered to and that safety prevails.
Evidently, to allow for us to adhere to the protocols that pertain to the transportation sector, we've had to consider the inclusion of additional buses so as to allow for us to meet that requirement within the transportation sector.
That was Minister for Education, Innovation, Gender Relations and Sustainable Development, Honorable Dr. Gail Rigobert. We are going to take a break at this time. When we come back, we hear from the Prime Minister, Honorable Alan Shastney, on the reopening of school, also addressing concerns that many parents might have, many parents who are apprehensive about returning their child ward to the classroom at this time, considering the COVID-19 situation, receiving additional reassurance from the Prime Minister in that respect. Also, we'll be hearing shortly from the Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Sharon Belmont-George. We received double releases from the Department of Health and Wellness yesterday, giving us an indication of the latest figures with respect to our COVID-19 status, the new diagnosis in the last 24 hours. So do stay with us. We have that on the other end of this break.
We got this. Yeah. I feel make it. No other choice but to be strong.
We're gonna make it.
What do you mean? God.
I am a voice of hope, and I just wanna let you know that I believe in our strength as a people and the promise of a bright tomorrow.
And I want you to believe and trust.
I know God is watching over us, and I believe if we all come together now, everything will be alright. If we only press on.
Strength of the bond and the ties among this generation.
Unite and be one, the fight will be won.
Come on, Caribbean.
Don't worry about the circumstances. Don't stress about the fears and the madness. Together we will take
to be strong, the battle is on.
For the future of each generation, every daughter and son united as one.
Sing on, Caribbean.
Don't worry about the sake of chance and life and confidence. Don't worry about the circumstances.
Must come.
It's just about the praise and the majesties. Together we will take our chance.
Not stress.
We got this. We got this. Oh yeah, we got this. We got this. Oh yeah, we got this. We got this. Yeah, we got this.
Hear me. Rough it, tough it, dirty enough, still have to get up. Full permit at the giddy and we have to stand up. As virus a rush, we still can't touch, we still can't crush we. We have faith, hope, strength, protection of the Almighty.
And we prayed up, yes, we prayed up. And we stayed up, yes, we stayed up. Head high full of confidence, we not keep bucket time, then we never gave up. Make up essential workers, rest in peace, we fallen soldiers. Corona can't conquer, we West Indies, one love and unity. Don't worry about the circumstances. Don't worry, no. It's just about the praise and the majesty. Together we will take our chance and life. We got this.
We got this.
Thank you so much for staying tuned. Definitely an apt music video they're playing. Don't worry about the stress and the madness. Together we will take our chance at life and conquer this. COVID-19 has presented twists and turns that no one could have expected. And at this juncture, the education sector reopening is just another one of those. And I think we will not all have the same opinion on the matter, but we need to have some degree of common ground in terms of how we are going forward in terms of the reopening of the sector. We did hear from the Honorable Minister for Education speaking and assuring us that the return to the classroom, the decision to return to the classroom was taken with due care and consideration. And no doubt the Department of Health is in on this. We had the Chief Environmental Health Officer, the Chief Medical Officer, also the Ministry of Education officials, Chief Education Officer, also weighing in on the matter and assuring the general public as of last week that there was definitely a lot of caution and ensuring that there was very stringent measures being instituted at the various schools on island to ensure the safety of the teachers, the students, ancillary staff, and what have you as the sector reopens. We now want to get an update from the Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Sharon Belmont George. Just stick a pin in the education talk for a while. We had a few new cases of COVID-19 in the last 24 hours, and I just want to go to that statement. And not only did we register 24 new cases just yesterday, but no sooner had we received that release, we got a subsequent release indicating that there was a further confirmation of 16 additional cases. We have a statement from the CMO speaking on the initial 24 cases. Take a look.
The Ministry of Health on Sunday received confirmation of 24 new cases of COVID-19 from a batch of 278 tests conducted by the Ezra Long Laboratory. This brings the total number of cases diagnosed in country to 462. All 24 cases are St. Lucia nationals ranging from 11 years to 47 years, and they are from the Castries, Grosile, Ancillary, Dennery, Babonneau, and Choiseul districts. They were seen at the community respiratory clinics where they were assessed and tested for COVID-19 while awaiting receipt of their test results. They were placed in quarantine by a health practitioner. Epidemiological links have been established for 17 of these cases so far. Investigations are ongoing by the contact tracing team to determine the links for the other 7 cases. Arrangements have been made to place these individuals into isolation. The rate of increased cases was anticipated due to the numerous breaches noted during the holiday season. The Ministry of Health anticipated and prepared for managing these increases during the month of January 2021. The Ministry of Education has been working in collaboration with the school principals to put the necessary measures in place to ensure the health and safety of all is prioritized. Today, Monday, January 11th, 2021, the second term of the academic year has commenced. With the increase in the number of COVID-19 cases diagnosed over the past week, we understand the concern felt by students, parents, teachers, administrative staff, and the general public at large. Access to updated information and school-specific protocols is key to managing without panic and anxiety. The Ministry of Health and Wellness remains available to provide support as needed to the sector as it reopens educational institutions. The COVID-19 environment requires increased effort by every single one of us. Parents, please ensure that children are kept at home or taken to the closest respiratory clinics if they develop respiratory symptoms. Do ensure that they are given a clean face mask daily with hand sanitizer. Encourage our children to cooperate with the school authorities to keep all of us safe. Keep the lines of communication open to address any fears that they may have. We understand the strain has been put on teachers who are managing with new modalities during the last few months, and we encourage them to continue cooperating with their principals to provide a safe, healthy academic environment for the future of our nation. We acknowledge the leadership of the principals and the Ministry of Education in guiding the sector during this difficult period of coexisting with COVID-19. The Ministry of Health and Wellness is working to strengthen the surveillance system to detect and to manage the anticipated increases in COVID-19 over the next 14 days. The public is advised to take personal responsibility to protect themselves and family. Especially now, as we are at risk of transmission due to the increased numbers of cases, everyone is asked to continue practicing the recommended infection prevention and control guidelines to reduce the spread of the virus. Wash your hands often during the day using soap and flowing water. Wear a mask in public places and ensure it covers your mouth, chin, and nose. Maintain a distance of 6 feet from others. Use a bleach solution to sanitize frequently touched surfaces and frequently handled objects. Avoid contact with other people who have flu-like symptoms. If you are experiencing flu-like symptoms, keep away from others and seek medical care at the closest community respiratory clinic. The Ministry of Health and Wellness will continue providing updates as new information becomes available.
That was the Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Sharon Belmont George. They're giving us a status update as to the first batch of confirmed cases for 11th January 2021. And also touching on the return to the classroom and noting the concerns of parents at this time, and also acknowledging the strain that has been put on teachers who are managing the new modalities during the last few months, encouraging them to continue cooperating with principals to provide a safe, healthy academic environment for the future of our nation. Definitely asking again to ensure that persons adhere to the protocols, because it's what's going to protect us as we return to some degree of normalcy here in our society. Moving forward with the protocols is going to provide sort of a layer of protection against the COVID-19 virus. We continue on this morning with word from the Prime Minister, Honorable Alan Chastanet there, speaking on the reopening of school as well. It's featured quite prominently in the news for the last, from Thursday, Friday last week, the concerns and the officials addressing the concerns of some parents and teachers as well. Prime Minister Honorable Alan Chastanet welcomed the opening of the second term the second school term to the physical setting, noting the importance of returning students to the classroom. He is proud that all stakeholders in the education sector, including the St. Lucia Teachers Union, he says he's proud of the work that they have put in terms of the consultations that have been happening and by all of the stakeholders involved.
Why am I proud? I'm proud of the fact that we have not complained and tried to develop protocols to allow kids to get back to school. I don't think any one of us can argue the importance of that. Going around and just meeting kids. Some kids, I have to say to you, have really excelled on the online schooling. I've heard of some kids who were not doing well prior in the old system and have really just been able to take advantage. But sadly, I think that those are too far and few between. A lot of the kids are missing the interaction. We also know that parents themselves are struggling with the anxiety of what's taking place economically, and then having the pressure that's being put on them to assist these kids, their kids, in their homework and in their education. Let's not underestimate the impact that that has had.
Adhering to the protocols, Prime Minister Shastri says ensures protection, as was the case at the Castries Comprehensive Secondary School, where a student tested positive for COVID-19 last September. And you would remember that that snowballed into a situation where the entire did not affect anyone at the school.
We also know that the child who was affected did not get COVID on one of the school campuses with him. And so therefore, again, it's reinforcement that the protocols worked. I am proud of the fact that when we discovered that, the immediate decision was to suspend school because we didn't want to put anyone in harm's way. So I want to reassure all the parents and the children that this government will always put you at the top of the pyramid and your health and safety.
Prime Minister Honorable Alan Chastney there speaking on the reopening of school, addressing the concerns of parents. He says he understands that some parents may be apprehensive about sending their children back to school, but he hopes within a short space of time they would build confidence in the knowledge that the protocols do work and do protect the population. I just want the Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Sharon Bilma-George, indicating that the rate of increased cases, and I think that's what's jarring many people at this point in time when it comes to the reopening of school, the increased cases was anticipated, and we did, I remember hearing that from the CMO at the last meeting, the last update to the nation following a NEMAC meeting. She did indicate that the increased cases was anticipated due to the numerous breaches noted during the holiday season. And we're not just touching on the potential for tourists to breach. It's also individuals who are holiday travelers, nationals who are returning home to family and friends for the holiday season and who are being asked to stay at home, to wait out their 14-day home-based quarantine before they can go out into the community. And that was already predicted by the Department of Health and Wellness. They anticipated and prepared for managing these increases during the month of January 2021. She has also indicated, just to remind you, that the Ministry of Health has been working with the Ministry of Education, with the school principals, to put the necessary measures in place to ensure the health and safety of all is prioritized. The reality of the situation is there are people, based on trends globally, it's a pandemic, people are contracting COVID-19. The effort is to reduce the risk of transmission as much as possible, and that is where the protocols come into effect. We have been stating over and over that the protocols are important, and not just adhering to the protocols in the sense of using a mask when you're in town. It is also adhering to home-based quarantine. It is ensuring that you have your business place closed by a certain time so that we can discourage social interactions as much as possible. There was quite some leeway offered to the business sector for some time for the holiday season to allow for, dining experiences of persons, and also to increase the opportunity for business activity here on island during the holiday season. And of course, that came with its own set of challenges, because while that is offered to the general public, we also have to contend with the potential for the increased risk of transmission. And this reduced restriction did come with a stern appeal coming from the Chief Medical Officer that we adhere to the protocols, the very basic and the more complex, that we adhere to the protocols to ensure the continued safety of the population. At this point in time that we have the Department of Health on board, the Ministry of Education is not proceeding, without thought. We have the assurance from the Minister of Education that this decision to return students to the physical space, the classroom, was taken with due care and consideration. And, a statement made by the Honorable Prime Minister was that, that while we have seen many kids excelling at this time of online learning, we can't forget some of the students who are perhaps not doing well and not adjusting. Some instances where kids would be better placed, and we cannot deny, the golden opportunity that is to be in a classroom and to have a direct interaction with your teacher, and vice versa. The teacher being able to engage the students in a meaningful way. Students could have their screens on mute and not really offer gated to in the classroom. So there's also that factor to take into consideration, the importance of returning to the classroom and to prepare our kids, prepare the future of the nation, the nation future by ensuring these kids are able to learn in a conducive space, a space that they can be comfortable in as health, as well as the Ministry of Education, that all measures have been put in place to ensure the protection of the kids as they return to the classroom. Also, a reminder to the bus drivers on island, public transportation, that as you receive the kids, these are our precious little ones, ensure that you are adhering to the protocols as well. Ensure that everyone boarding the bus has a mask on. Ensure that you have hand sanitizer at the ready. Ensure that persons, use hand sanitizer. Ensure that everything that is asked of the public transportation sector is adhered to when it comes to you and your 14-seater. Yeah? Let's all play our part to ensure that we are protecting our kids, protecting the population at large from COVID-19. It's all well and good to say, no, I don't want to send my kids back to school, but there are also other things to consider. Have you adhered to all of the protocols when you yourself are going to work? We have to think of all of these things, because we are equally putting our kids at risk if we don't do all that we should when we're going into town and whatnot. So please ensure that all across the board, we are protecting our kids all across the board. And of course, this assurance from the Ministry of Education that they are doing their part, let's do our part as well. We are due for a break. When we come back, the Disaster Vulnerability Reduction Project, DVRP, lends much needed support to the National Emergency Management Organization. Stay with us.
Yeah. What does coronavirus have in common with love? Both are highly contagious. Spread love, not the virus. Like you, COVID-19 loves a lime. Beach, river, or fed. Coronavirus is like these people who track every lime just to invade. The best way to put off invaders? Cancel the lime. Spread love, not the virus. Keep you and your crew corona-free. Live to lime another day.
Together let us win this war. Say you shall be a soldier. Together we can beat this corona.
Protecting lives and livelihoods, the education sector being part of that livelihood. Just to go back on the Prime Minister indicating how important the kids returning to the classroom is. If your child or ward is back at school, ensure that you provide them with what they need, the apparatus they need to protect themselves while they are there. keep in close contact with the principal, the administrators, the teachers, as to what what is happening on the school compound during the day with COVID-19, considering the pandemic. Ensure that you keep close, keep your ears to the ground, and know what's happening while your child or ward is at school. An encouragement for the kids to return back to the classroom so that they can get the best learning experience possible. We continue with the news this morning. The Disaster Vulnerability Reduction Project, DVRP, has lent much needed support to the National Emergency Management Organization, NEMO. We have a report from Herma Demac.
St. Lucia is at risk from natural, man-made and slow onset hazards. Some of the natural disasters include hurricanes, flooding, landslides, seismic and volcanic activity. The man-made hazards relate to dam collapse, explosions, oil and hazardous material spills, mass casualty, civil unrest, fires, and information and communication technology disruptions. Additionally, the island is at risk to slow onset hazards that include droughts, plagues, and the predicted effects of global climate change. When disasters strike, the National Emergency Management Authority, NEMO, activates the National Emergency Operations Center, where coordination of all disasters is handled with a varied team, depending on the nature of the disaster. However, for eons, the Emergency Operations Center has been functioning with little to no resources to manage such a mammoth task.
What we have is a shell, and it is functional, but its functionality can be severely increased.
When people are in here and the NEOC is activated, you have issues with getting information. So information being fed into the NEOC, that is lacking because of your communications.
With the support of the World Bank Group, the Disaster Vulnerability Project, and the Department of Economic Development, the Operations Center will receive the latest audio-visual equipment and computers, all with COSIP's fiber-connected internet, with a duplicate system from Flow to ensure continuity of service during a disaster. An off-site backup server system has also been provided to ensure seamless continuity. Through the Contingent Emergency Response component, the Operations Center is also being provided logistical support through the procurement of a 4x4 double cab pickup for disaster planning and response. NEMO also received 371 1,000-gallon water tanks for shelters and response agencies like police, fire, and bodily correctional facility. NEMO has distributed these water tanks to schools, churches, human resource centers, and the National Council for Persons with Disabilities. 85 radios and 8 base stations were also procured under the DVRP project to assist the health system and NEMO.
Our collaboration with DVRP through the World Bank is that there were funds which were identified post-Hurricane Thomas for use for disaster purposes. What we found out last year was that the funds were not used as yet. So therefore we met together as a team and decided what were the needs of the NEOC and NEMO as a whole.
In addition to upgrading equipment at the National Emergency Operations Center through the DVRP Contingent Emergency Response component, work will be done to design and build a comprehensive disaster information management system in order to enhance NEMO's ability to collect, store, access, and analyze data. This will ultimately enable NEMO to better fulfill its mandate and support data-driven comprehensive disaster management. The DVRP funding will also be used for critical capacity building and training.
So one of the training that we're going to do is the community emergency response training. And so we're going to make teams available to the various communities and bring some of the capabilities at the NASA level to the community level. So we're going to train some of the community members in some search and rescue, fire suppression, medical attention. So those are things that they can do at their community. So they're able to now assist themselves. Unsolicited donations are the worst because it really and truly, it impedes what you're trying to do. You really want to know from the community what has happened to them and what is it that they need. So you at the national level can make the resource available to them. So part of that is, so the second part of the training is the damage assessment. The third part of the training is the mass casualty management, which looks at medical interventions when something has happened. So you have a lot of casualties. How do you treat wounds? How you take care of persons initially before the national system can get there.
In total, $685,000 was allocated by the World Bank through the DVRP to the National Emergency Management Authority. From the Government Information Service, Lamedi Mark reporting.
Thank you, Huma, for that report. That's all the time we have for now for this morning. We'd like to thank you so much for watching. My name is Jessie Leon, signing off for this morning. Do stay tuned for more programming coming from NTN as we roll out the latest updates coming from the government of St. Lucia. New cases to report. We have 24 new cases initially yesterday and an additional 16 cases coming out thereafter of COVID-19. In your going out and your coming in, ensure that you adhere to the protocols and the infection prevention measures, guidelines that have been put out by the Ministry of Health and Wellness. Enjoy the rest of your day. Cheers.